Hey, what's up? Hope you're having fun. This week I'm going straight into it and I'm talking about the Nikon F301. Right, so like I said, we've got the Nikon F301 and the Kodak Color Plus 200. So I'm going to put this in, show you how to put that film in. Right, so start off with the basics then. Really quick one in case any confusion. This is a newer lens. It's a 50mm 1.8 by Nikon. It is autofocused if you've got a newer camera. This range of F301 from 1985 is not autofocus, and I'll come on to that in just a second. So yeah, really important. If you're going to use a lens on these cameras that don't have autofocus, you need to make sure it's not only got an aperture ring, it's got a manual focus ring as well. So you can't use it without that. So just a bit of a pre-warning. So this is relatively cheap, fantastic. I love this lens so much, and even with like my modern cameras, it is brilliant. I love a prime lens. But anyway, there you go. So that's the lens. Moving on then. So yeah, this camera from 1985, it was starting to be the last in the line of the non-autofocus Nikons. So pretty much Nikon was absolutely excellent at the metering towards the latter end of the 70s and early 80s, and they didn't do very well at the autofocus. So the cameras after this then start to have autofocus, which is like a shaft in here, aren't brilliant. So just a pre-warning on that one. So this is one of the reasons why when I purchased a camera around that era that I wanted, I went for the non-autofocus Nikon. So going back to the settings then, I'll start with the simple stuff. I'll just pretend that you're not familiar at all with this maybe, but you've got some settings here. Now, you press this little button down here and lift it up a slight bit to move it around. So if you want to manually put your shutter speed in, then that's your shutter speed, 2000 down to 1 and bulb. If you want to play on auto priority mode and hit it on the A, then you've got program mode and program high. High will try and give you the highest shutter speed possible, and program mode is you set it yourself. I've not played with those massively, so I won't go into a crazy amount of detail with that. How I use this camera is either manual or via aperture priority mode. And that works really well because, like I said, those sort of cameras around that era have brilliant metering. So aperture priority mode, again, if you don't know and you're on the real basics, is you select your aperture. So you can see here 1.8, 2.8, blah blah blah. And then once that does it, you then get your shutter here, halfway press it. That focuses, well, doesn't focus online, that's a that's a typo but with words. You go like that and that exposes it, tells the camera what shutter speed to hit, and then it takes a photo. So if you need a really high one, you can do the P high, and that'll just try and push that exposure a little bit. So just remember, obviously, that does depend on the film, but I'll get onto that in just a second. But anyway, so really important, halfway press, exposure, and then you take the photo. And that's aperture priority mode, which I found, like I said, is excellent, and I use that predominantly 90% of the time. 95% I'm in aperture priority mode. Moving on then to shutter. A really quick one with a beep. If you like a beep when you're halfway pressed to get the exposure, it does it. You can turn that off by doing that. It doesn't do it. And then moving on to these ones, you've got continuous. So that means once you've exposed, you can press that down all the way and it takes loads of photos. You can do single, which you can get on here, or lock. Single just does it once and then you'd have to re-expose to do another picture. The lock's an interesting one. If you've got a scene that's consistently lit, and you're happy with the exposure once you've pressed it down and the shutter speed's correct, stick it up to lock, and then actually, it won't do it now because I've no film in it, it'll just take the photo, singular, but you don't have to keep exposing every time, and you don't have that halfway house of sort of going halfway down to get the exposure. It will just continue to take the photo as and when, because it's in locked exposure. So that's a really good one. If you've got a consistently lit one and you're happy with the exposure settings, then you can just stick it in there and you don't have to worry about losing that maybe half a second if you're going halfway down to expose again. And they're the settings. So they're the real basic ones. That'll get you started. And in a second I'll go through what this means, and then over here and that little R button as well. So let's move on. So first up, how you actually open the back of the camera to get your film in. So we switch it back on here. So this is how you get into that back. Take this little lever here, pop it up like that, and it pops open. So you just pull it up and it comes open. Then from there, you have this. So what you need to do is stick it out like that. So we stick it in here. There we go. You grab it like this. Make sure it doesn't come out. You pull it over and you pop it in there. And then what you do, just close it up, lock it, push that down, Now this is going to start the film automatically because it had this in this camera. So you have to manually rewind it, but it will start this camera automatically. So all you do is, and this is where I'm going to come to the other settings, you turn it around, make sure it's in. And can you see this setting here? That at the moment is just on the S. This is your film count. So all you can do is just press it down once, and it's going to wind it. You see that wind? And that basically means it's got it now wound in the film and it's on number 1. So that means now we can start taking the photos. Just for you guys, I'm going to take one of this bad boy. So aperture priority mode, we're going to focus it in halfway down, see if it does it. Boom, see that move? That was the camera moving, and there we go. So that is your film now, that's cracked on, and the camera will start taking photos. Okay, so this bit here then, so this is your film, really simply. This is a Kodak 200 Colour Plus, so I stick it on the 200, so it's a film equivalent of ISO nowadays. In the digital age of 200, you just put it whichever one you want. You can have a play with that, and it's all about the metering, so, but it's good to obviously get it as accurate as you can really. The other one which is really important is this one here. So this is again to do with the metering of the camera and how you want to expose. So you just press the little arrow down there and either go under 2 stops, 1 stop, over 2 stops or whatever. Now I've, just from experience, when I have a shoot in digital, I always underexpose by usually a stop or half a stop. It's the opposite with film, and it's just something that I've learned really, that you get better results with if you over push it really. And it's just a personal experience, people might disagree. I usually have it 1 stop over. Like I said, there'll be a card at the end of this on the video to my results, so have a look at what I've got from it and then see what you think. I guess if you like that style, then yeah, maybe stick it on 1 over. If you don't, have a play. It's all about fun, isn't it really? So yeah, there we go. So that is that one. And then the last but not least is how to rewind the film. So once you've clicked through and you've got to your 36 or whatever exposures you've got of your film, you then have to rewind it. You'll know that it's finished, and the biggest tip I can give to you here is this is your rewind button there that you press down, and you can move that over to the right, which then starts the rewind. So you basically move that over to the right, you lift this up like this, and you physically rewind it. Now it's not letting me do it now because I've not moved that over, and you go like that and that and that until it's done, until it's back. The biggest tip here is it is physically you're winding it round and round and round and round, and there is proper traction. You can feel it. It's moving. It's moving. When it finishes, it is like this. It's just nothing. So do not open this back of this camera until you have got to a point of that just being really, really loose. You'll know it. Do not open that before it gets to that point. I've done that before where it like clicked halfway around, so I thought that was done. You open it up and boom, you've exposed the light to the film. See you later. And I've done that before. So you do, regardless of clicks and all that stuff, remember it's the 30-year-old camera, 35-year-old camera. It is so loose when it's finished. It's just like air, and that's the point because the film's moving around and it's stopped. So that is the biggest tip I can give you. I can't stress that enough. And that is it. Hopefully that'll explain how to get you started with the Nikon F301. Enjoy.